You have probably seen someone waving a Confederate flag and wondered, why would someone openly advertise that they are racist? Well, they are not. I mean, some of them are, but some of them are just not. But then, why do they have a Confederate flag? And what does it have to do with propaganda? And what about the several other symbols with the same issue? To answer the thumbnail, this is not racist. And I don't mean that the Confederacy was not racist. It was, obviously. And this video is not about defending it. This video is about understanding propaganda because understanding it makes it less effective. And in this video specifically, I'm advocating for understanding each other and understanding what the other person means when they say something. It is about the many different meanings of some symbols, how they can be used as a dog whistle, how they can be incorporated into propaganda with the motte and fallacy, and how the negative reactions to these symbols can be also used for propaganda. And also, why is it a bad idea to idolize national heroes? So back to the first symbol I will be talking about. I probably don't need to explain its association with the Confederacy, or what the Confederacy stood for. And with its history, it's easy to see why groups like the KKK adopted it and use it to represent white supremacy and racism, just like the Confederacy did. But the Confederacy also did other things, like trying to secede from the United States or rebel against it, and it also put heavy emphasis on state rights and was in favor of more autonomous states instead of a centralized federal power. Yes, it did this mainly to preserve slavery, and it is frequently used as a dog whistle, often downplaying the slavery aspect and simply referring to it as state rights. But state rights to what exactly is somehow always missing. And some people understand what these rights are about and know what the dog whistle means, others not so much. And their thought process terminates at autonomy, rebellion, or state rights. And it's not an elaborate way of me calling them stupid. Some people just treat these issues separately, and they are kind of separate. You can be against slavery but still prefer an autonomous state with very little federal influence. And when some people look at the Confederate flag, they see its complicated and intertwined meaning of racism, white supremacy, pro slavery, state rights, autonomy, and rebellion, and whatever else, as meanings separate from each other. And they simply use it to represent select meanings, either because they think those meanings have more relevance, that the Confederacy put more emphasis on them, or because they lack the historical knowledge, or for whatever other reason. It's going to be easier to understand it through an actual real life example. This picture was not taken in the south. It was taken way up north, somewhere in Sweden or Norway. What you see is the raggare subculture, centered around American cars from the 50s and 60s, rock and roll music, and this particular style of clothing, which is pretty unusual. You could call it an act of rebellion against current social norms. And what better symbol is there for rebellion as the rebel flag, as they call it? Well, it turns out there are way better symbols for it, and it fell out of use once people raised awareness about the other meanings. But the subculture, which does not hold any racist or white supremacist beliefs, simply use this flag for this very select meaning, used as in past tense. So, to highlight the important point before moving on, a lot of symbols have multiple meanings. Often these meanings are very different from each other, like the Confederate flag, which can stand for racism or rebellion and autonomy, and the other stuff we discussed. So, why am I talking about this? Well, you have probably noticed that it pays really well to be a political scammer, talking about the most unhinged conspiracy theories. Some people even do it for free, making memes in their free time, shitposting on Twitter and 4chan, and so on. So we get memes like these. Broadly, they are trying to portray anti-racism as anti-white racism, trying to tell you that when people are against racism, they are not against discrimination or other aspects of racism, but that it's simply a dog whistle for racism against white people. I don't want to talk about the memes themselves. What I want you to think about is that there are a lot of people who see these memes regularly, having various opinions about them. Some people think that they are 100% true, some think it's complete bullshit, and everything in between. And some of these people may be the ones who have a Confederate flag. Yes, some of them are probably racist, but some of them just have it for the other meanings. So what do you think will happen when this person, who is not racist, gets shouted at or antagonized for being racist, while from their perspective, they have not done anything racist. They just like small government with weak federal power and more state autonomy. And they found a symbol to express this opinion. Well, they will think that these memes have actual merit and are accurately describing what is happening. After all, they had the exact same experience. And that's a pretty good start of going down the alt-right pipeline. Especially so because they could just have a Confederate flag because they are from a state from the former Confederacy. And they do not attribute any other meaning or symbolism to the flag. It's just a piece of history of their country, like an old musket or something similar. How do you think this person will react to these memes when they are being called racist simply for their birthplace, from their perspective at least? Because from their point of view, they had the flag just because it was one of the previous flags of their state and nothing more. I mean, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of statues of kings in France. Do you think the average French person is pro-monarchy? It's just a piece of history and not a statement in favor of monarchy. And from the perspective of these people, it's the same thing for the Confederate flag. And I guess you're probably thinking about, but what about the other people who use it for racist meaning and then fall back on these kind of arguments to defend the usage of the flag? Yeah, I will get to that too, but there are around 10 different things I want to talk about at the same time, so anyway, just like any other symbol, the Confederate flag does not have any particular meaning. It depends on what people attribute to it. And these meanings can be completely different. Like the word light can mean the opposite of heavy, or the opposite of dark, or just sugar-free. There is far more to this that I would also like to discuss after going through some other examples. But to sum it up so far, the problem in this example was that a symbol can have a meaning A and a meaning B. And when a person uses it for the meaning B, people, most likely unknowingly, claim that they use it for meaning A. And due to the media environment, this claim actually pushed them towards A. Another good example for this topic, but a slightly different kind of problem, is this guy. This is Stefan Bandera, and in case you don't know him, he did some things. These things include fighting against the Russian Empire or the Soviet Union after the rebranding. Specifically, he fought for an independent Ukraine, and he also committed genocide against Jews and whomever the world's favorite mad junkie did not like on that particular day. Given his leadership role in the part of the Second World War where Ukrainians fought against Russian occupation, he became a symbol for fighting against Russian occupation, a symbol that became popular again due to recent events. And something similar happens here as at the Confederate flag, but this time it is deliberate. Mostly it's Russian propaganda claiming that Ukrainians use Bandera not as a symbol for the resistance against the Russian invasion, but as a symbol to promote Nazism or anti-Semitism or whatever, which they have an easy job to do. They just point at the actual Nazis in Ukraine, using Bandera as more of a Nazi symbol than as a symbol of resistance against Russian aggression or occupation. And then the Russians use the association fallacy to claim that since there are Ukrainians who are Nazis and use Bandera as a symbol, therefore other Ukrainians who use Bandera as a symbol are also Nazis. And my favorite was when the Canadian Parliament signaled its support for Ukraine's self-defense by inviting someone who have defended Ukraine against the Russians a long time ago. And in a twist that is fitting for a B-movie, and absolutely nobody saw this coming, it turned out that the guy was a former SS member. They can do some bullshit damage control afterwards, that they invited him because he defended Ukraine, and not because he was an SS member, or that they didn't even know that he was an SS member until afterwards. The damage is already done, and they have provided fertile ground for propaganda. Or because they couldn't simply communicate that they support Ukraine in its self-defense, they needed a mascot for that, like it's some high school football game. And it turned out that the mascot was also an SS member. A somewhat similar example are the Founding Fathers, who, despite its shortcomings that later needed to be addressed and some that still need addressing, created one of the best, if not the best, systems of government at the time. Best when it came to civil liberties and personal freedom, which is quite the achievement. reason for which many people treat them as idolized heroes apart from just historical figures. And the problem with that you should already suspect, is that they were not perfect people. And alongside their positive contributions to society, they also did some less positive things, bad things, just so there is no ambiguity. Namely, many of them were slave owners. And with idolizing people comes the obvious problem that you are idolizing them, the entire person, and not just their positive actions, but the negative actions too. After all, if an action was done by a good person, then that means that this action must be good, right? Obviously a bad argument, but if people wouldn't fall for bad arguments, I wouldn't do this channel. And with slavery in this case, it's not that big of an issue because most people easily recognize it as an action that should not be done. A sentence that I hope will not age like milk. But this problem becomes a bigger one when it's about less obvious policies or actions, because then this method or this bad argument can actually change people's mind. It's a pretty weak argument and usually not even a formal argument, just suggestive messaging, trying to associate the idea of the idolized heroic person with the policy or action in question. But anyway, back to the founding fathers, where the most common use of this kind of propaganda is not trying to push their negative actions or attributes as positive, but rather when some people raise awareness about the imperfections of these idolized heroes, and that worshipping them as such can lead viewing their bad actions as if they were good, then other people immediately jump on this and push propaganda to create a narrative that people trying to highlight these issues are actually against the positive actions and contributions of these heroes, and not the bad ones. And since I think almost everyone has a positive opinion about these positive actions, the people pushing this propaganda hope that this will present the people raising awareness about these issues regarding the founding fathers as a niche and obviously bad extremist group. Then come further steps of propaganda of trying to present this niche and obviously bad extremist group as the entire collective left wing, trying to push undecided voters or just people who view the positive actions of the founding fathers, which is pretty much everyone, to the right. That would be its own separate topic and video, but I guess you understand how negative reactions to symbols and heroes with mixed meanings can be turned into propaganda. So, to sum up this last part, person A highlighted that the symbol in question, in this case a historical figure or idolized national hero, has both good and bad meanings. And because of this, blindly idolizing them can accidentally lead to idolizing their bad actions or promoting the bad meanings of the symbol. Person B purposefully creates a strawman of person A's claim, claiming that since person A is against the idolization of the symbol, this must mean that they are against the good meanings of the symbol, trying both to present person A in a bad light and to try to distract people from person A's real arguments. I know this explanation sounds very pedantic, but people are falling for these types of scam every day. I did too until some years ago, until someone explained this to me. So I guess it's worth doing this. There are also a lot of other examples I could highlight, but I guess you get what I'm trying to say. But back to the Confederate flag, because I promised that later I will talk about people who use it for the racist meaning and then pull a motte fallacy. Well, now is later. So as we discussed, the Confederate battle flag can have racist meanings and non-racist meanings. And there are people who know this and use it specifically for its racist symbolism. Sometimes they make this pretty obvious. But when called out for it, they don't even attempt to defend their use of it as a racist symbol, nor do they provide any good arguments for racism, which would actually be a first. Instead, they immediately start defending its use as a non-racist symbol. And more importantly, they defend these values as if they are using the flag for these values, and not whether or not the flag is actually the best symbol to depict these values. And, well, you are going to have a hard time arguing why autonomy is bad. Even harder if they claim that it's just a piece of history, and that you are trying to erase their history and destroy their national identity, or in this case, state identity or whatever. But you know that unlike the guy who genuinely used it for these non-racist and historical purposes, this new guy is full of shit and they are using the motte fallacy. Should you call them out on it? Yeah, so I'm not your father, so I'm not going to tell you what to do. But think about what exactly would you achieve by calling them out on their bullshit. I mean, worst case scenario, you misjudge a situation and the new guy is actually really using it as a non-racist or historical symbol. And just as I described earlier, you just push someone towards the racist ideologies. Best case scenario is that you are right, and they are really using it as a racist symbol. So what? Like, what's going to happen? They're not going to stop using it, and they're not going to stop being racist. They are just going to keep on yelling and throwing a tantrum. And other people are going to witness this, whether it's happening in real life or online. And pretty much the same thing will happen that I described earlier. Some people will believe the new guy's claim of using it as a non racist historical symbol and see you getting mad at them for being racist. Exact same thing will happen as before, but another guy you are going to push towards actual racism is an onlooker and not the guy holding the flag, who is already a racist. And usually this is exactly what the new guy wants. To bait you into shouting or yelling at them for being racist, pretending innocence and telling other people that you are actually against the non-racist values of the symbol and are trying to erase history and so on and so on. Pretty much the same arguments I described with the founding fathers. And some people will unfortunately fall for it. So, what can you do instead? Just calmly and politely explain the racist, pro slavery, white supremacist meaning of the flag, and that you are against these, and not against autonomy or state rights or whatever. Most of all, not against erasing history or people's national identity or state or whatever. You get the point. Even if you're 100% sure that the guy using the flag is actually racist, one, you never know, and two, think about how other people will perceive the interaction. You will not change somebody's mind who is actually racist just by shouting at them. But if the guy in question is really holding it just for its historical significance, you can win them over. And you can also win over the other onlookers instead of just pushing them away. You will not win everyone over, but as long as the crazy people are in an insignificant minority, it doesn't really matter. You can do the same thing with the founding fathers or other national heroes or other important figures and symbols, and you get the idea. And also, one more thing that I realized after almost finishing the script, banning these symbols would not work. Well, first of all, the obvious one that I already discussed, this will push people towards the negative meanings. You are trying to erase history, you are against the positive meanings, and so on. The second thing, for example, did you know that in Germany the Nazi flag and other symbols are already illegal? Is this illegal? It doesn't have a swastika. So technically it's not a Nazi symbol. It's patriotic, at least according to Amazon. But let's say we update the band to obvious symbols that are changed just enough to not be banned, but still have the same meaning. And you get this. If it's similar to the pride flag, it's not a coincidence. It's a German nationalistic pride flag. One thing that I'm trying to get across is that you can always abstract your symbol just enough to stay legal, but still be immediately recognizable. I mean, most people probably recognize this. The other thing I want to highlight is that this flag does not have the exact same meaning as this flag. You can easily attack the meaning of this flag. It's obvious what it is and what it stands for. But this one can be used for the same meaning, but it has additional meanings. Obviously, it's a German pride flag. So, when you're attacking this symbol, are you being anti German? Do you want to destroy their national identity or their culture? And we are pretty much back at the motte fallacy, because these are the things that the proponents of this flag will claim that you are actually trying to do. So banning this symbol does not work. Not only because they can just circumvent the ban by adopting new ones, but the new ones they adopt are either so abstract that reacting negatively to them makes you look irrational, or they are symbols with some positive interpretations. And, well, I already talked about symbols with mixed meanings. Anyway, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something. Please like, comment and subscribe so this can reach more people. Special thanks to my Patreons Jay Brandon and Ardabon. and have a nice day.